Yeah, I think I just got yeeted from Twitter. Oh, well. I make new accounts like every few months. I get to the 500 to 1,000 subs, and they just show me the door. I was watching some of the CW's Batgirl because I was thinking about making some videos on it. And yes, it is beyond silly. But this guy mentioned that, oh wait, let me virtue signal. My Mexican black homosexual friend pointed out that Batgirl is its own character. It's funny, this guy is gay and dates trans individuals. But my other buddy is makes fun of everybody. And he's not anti-gay, but he definitely makes fun of trans people, like, repeatedly all the time. It's funny, but, there's always got to have some bite to some humor. So it's an interesting mix of people. Oh, but about the Batgirl thing is that they didn't just take Batman and replace him or turn him gay like Iceman. I didn't know much history of the character, except I think Gail Simone did some issues, and they probably weren't very good. Gail Simone has an odd habit of writing mediocre stories, but then just continuing on to other projects. That's what happens when you treat comics like a club of friends and not a business. After the recent events, Calgon, take me away. I found a palate cleanser. Sometimes you need to just put on a movie like Predator and just kind of make popcorn. So this 3-issue series is from 2000, and it was woke, but not anything like modern day. It's only 20 years ago, but the culture war has advanced 100 years. The political background environment has moved so much further to the left. I started reading the first issue, and I got the vibe that it was going to be good, and I stopped and actually made popcorn, which I love. I assume that you're familiar with the awesomeness that was the 1987 Predator. I can't imagine anyone not having seen that classic. The comic has the same spooky energy, and actually I read it because I wasn't looking for something woke to review, which is all too easy to find. I just wanted something to cleanse the palate, and this was perfect. It's one of those comics that feels like you're in a movie. This comic did something that would have the artistic team burned at the stakes nowadays. Soak in the awesomeness of pages 2 and 3. You immediately feel the jungle adventure. Then the black chick with the bikinis and the nice jugs and sex appeal. It's something that you just don't see anymore. Nothing more than a B cup is allowed in modern mainstream comics. In modern comics, 100% of the black characters are going to be purse puppies. So when you see them, you know the story is going to suck balls because of the SJW's soft bigotry of lowered expectations. There is some of that purse puppy stuff going on. She holds 3 degrees, but and that's sort of silly. I mean, whatever your PhD is usually the area you just focus on, and it's like a single PhD in physics is impressive enough. But while she is overpowered in the brain department, they have her huge boobs flopping around because they know the importance of sex appeal. And they didn't think sex was a bad thing. Nowadays, the idiots who run comics are very sex negative. Comics were always woke, but they used to be slightly more well-balanced, and they were fun. Nowadays, comics are 90% propaganda. I saw a Twitter fight about the evolution of pretty characters in comics. They use Squirrel Girl as an example, and she is about the dumbest looking character imaginable. But actually, her first iteration, for her first graphic on the scene, I forget who drew her, horrific looking image. She is so ugly that she is probably designed by a team of angry feminists so that she appeals to absolutely nobody. Their goal is to avoid the male gaze, but they forget that it's the males who buy the comics. So some people were virtue signaling in the audience about comics are for everyone. But I put my 2 cents in and said, no, comics are not for everyone. Comics are for the paying customers, which seems like such an obvious statement. But saying comics are for everyone, it sounds like such a feel-good slogan that people just kind of mindlessly repeat. But people just repeat things, myself included, without really thinking about them. And as soon as somebody points it out, you can think about it and go, oh, maybe they're not for everybody. It's like, Ferraris are for everybody. Well, no, not really. They're for people who want a 2-seater car that's kind of dangerous to drive and, can't go over speed bumps. You can't carry the family around in them. You say, comics for everybody. It's like, well, you don't hate women, do you? You're not a man baby, are you? But points like those are irrelevant, and points like these are not irrelevant. Comics are for the customers. If you make comics for people who don't buy comics, they will find someone else to sell them comics. And that's what you saw with Comicsgate. The mainstream stuff was so bad that people were willing to pay a premium to buy SJW free comics. The feminists want to see ugly women in comics, but they rarely buy comics. So really, they just don't want you to have anything that you enjoy. They are the biggest busybodies in the world. They insist on putting their big fat noses into other people's groups so they can destroy them. If they see people having a good time and it's the wrong people, the wrong color people, they immediately put their grubby little heads together and try to find out a way to bring them down. A product is not for everyone. Specific comics are marked to a specific audience. If you're selling My Little Pony, that is marketed mostly to girls under 12. G.I. Joe was for boys, or at least it used to be. Then they introduced an obese woman as the heavy gunner and replaced the Liberty devices with safety stunner lasers. They weren't really appealing to anyone. You don't grow your audience when you do stuff like that. You shrink it. They think, oh, we'll appeal to everyone and we'll get more people. No, you've just become a jack of all trades and master of none. Anyway, so Superman versus Predator is how you do it right if you want diversity in comics. The chick is one of the lead characters, but she isn't a feminist potato or the feminist B-cup like they do so often. Just like 5'6", 115 pounds, slim B-cup. Looks like I don't know, your friend's mom who jogs. In real life, she'd be beautiful, but in the comics, you gotta kind of exaggerate things. In this comic, she's in shorts and a bikini top because tits are a selling point. There's no other way to say that. Then the story does some stuff that you can't do nowadays. First, they gave the purse puppy D cups. Then they made her nuanced, and they made her a sociopath. The plot deals with scientists who want to release a chemical that kills anyone with genetic disorders or recessive gene carriers, which is an interesting discussion, but for some reason they portray the scientists as the bad guys. Though really, from an environmental viewpoint, it's not such a bad idea. Trim the dead weight. The team of good guy scientists investigating the space alien craft are trying to escape the bad scientists who want to kill a few billion people. But then Jugs thinks about it and she does a heel turn. She decides she wants to join Team Genocide and work on the project. So they made a skinny, big-titted black chick a sociopathic mass murderer who wants to kill billions of people. Why don't we see stuff like this now? Because it confuses SJWs. Soy people don't do nuance. I think a lot of them are on the spectrum. They just don't understand subtle characters. Oh, this was cool. They're talking about the history of the time the alien came the first time. They did that in the film Predator too. It was very effective, and it worked in this one too. Come to hunt the hunted. The story is sweet, and Superman is the least interesting part of the story. And I never liked Superman comics too much, mostly because he was just God-level powered. But in this story, he gets exposed to internet gas or something and loses some of his power, so he's more on equal footing with the aliens. What is so cool about this story is the jungle setting. It feels like you're in the thick of it. It feels like the movie, which was a pretty solid film. Oh, in the comic, there's a scene where the younger, big-titted black chick is sexually attracted to the older British guy. I get the feeling that this would also confuse SJW. Oh, this made me laugh. They give the isotope to the gene carrier, and he just falls over dead. It was horrible, but it made me laugh. Yeah, this would confuse SCW. You see Superman struggling in the story, but you know nothing's going to happen to him. The name Superman sort of gives it away. It's a weird story where the titular character is the least interesting person in it. I think they could have fleshed the story out for more than 3 issues, but it's called 3 issues, but they're more than double-sided, so it's actually like 7 issues in terms of page count. I don't know why they did that. It seems to me like the Predator universe is ripe for comic book stories. I assume there are a ton of Predator stories out there, and I just checked. Yes, there are, but I don't know which ones are good. That made me laugh. I mean, the thing is, this was in 2000, and even in 2000, they were far left. But at least they had a sense of humor back then. Great. Make fun of the Polish people. That's fabulous. Okay, here she does a heel turn. She turns away because she decides she's a scientist and she wants to fire this bioengineered compound into the atmosphere that will kill billions of people. So the point is, these kind of characters, you're not going to see these kind of characters nowadays. You've got this dripping with sex appeal character who's also a mass murderer, and she's also at least partially black. So, like in 2000, I guess you could do this kind of stuff, and you just think, oh, okay, it was just a character. It's just a character in a book. She's a scientist. She's got big tits. I mean, not all physicists are ugly. I mean, only 99% of them, but there are some good-looking ones. And this is a scene where she was flirting with the guy earlier, and he's the old British cliche tea drinker, and he's balding, but he's like ex-special forces and that kind of thing. And she wants him to stay with him and have kids and start this new world order type of thing. And he goes to save the day by punching out the black chick. Violence against women. I don't think this would fly nowadays. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Want to get a hold of me, Bianca Zombie 62@gmail.com, or hit up my P.O. box and send me something to look over. Support channel, click the links if you want me to add. Oh, wow, someone did just send me something to edit. I was supposed to do that. All right, guys, I will see you on the next episode.